Next to me is Superintendent Jen Wimmer. I'm just going to turn to her and ask her to verify that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
All right, thank you for responding in the affirmative. All right, so just to give you a little preview of this meeting, at this annual meeting, this is not a school board meeting, so that's why you don't see any school board members present up on stage. This is a meeting of the electors. That being said, there are a number of school board members present. I serve on the school board, as does Kurt Rebholz. He's acknowledged, that's great, and Joel Ongert, I think is here, so there, thank you, Joel. I see John Donaldson here, correct. Let's see, Melanie is here as well, okay, thank you. Have I missed anyone? Because I believe Tani Schmidt and Nancy Justman were unable to attend tonight. So thank you, school board members, for participating. But again, this is a meeting of the electors, not of the school board. And so just to give you a little preview, here's the agenda that we are proposing for tonight. And since it isn't a school board meeting, we're asking the electors to vote on these items. So there will be motions and seconds at certain points. And so what I'd like to do when we come to that point is I'll ask you to vote either yes or no at the right time by rising so that we can count people. And so what we're going to do is during this first portion of the meeting, the annual meeting of the electors, we'll do that. In the meantime, at the next meeting, we're going to talk about voting on resolutions related to the budget. And so thank you in advance for all those folks who registered. We're verifying those names against the tax database so that we know that all of those who registered are eligible. And that'll become important, especially as we vote on the resolutions related to the tax levy. That comes again at the next meeting. And also, I'll just remind folks, as I have my notes here, who is eligible to vote? This is at this meeting. This is a little different than school board meetings. In this case, residents are defined as every U.S. citizen, age 18 and older, who has resided in the district for at least 28 days. So that's the criteria. And so for you to vote, you have to meet that criteria. So I just wanted to remind people, U.S. citizen, age 18 and older, and resided in the district for at least 28 days. All right, so with that background, we have the agenda up in front of us, and I'm already kind of working on the common questions. What we'll do then is Mr. Andy Sarno will present the proposed budget for your consideration. Then we'll have a hearing, and at that time, you'll have the ability to speak for up to 3 minutes on the budget. And unlike a school board meeting where you can talk about any item on the agenda, not on the agenda, in this case, your comments would need to be reserved for matters related to the budget, so they'd need to be focused on budget. Then we're going to adjourn this meeting, and we'll call to order the annual meeting where we will talk more about the proposed resolutions, the tax levy. You'll also hear from Superintendent Wimmer with an update on the district. All right, so that's a little bit of a kind of a preview of what we're going to do tonight. So the first thing I need is approval of this agenda. So I'd ask for a motion from the floor to approve the agenda as I've outlined it. Is anyone wish to care to make that motion? Great, we have a motion to approve, and if I could just have your name, and I apologize in advance because with the lights in my eyes, it's hard for me to see the audience, so I may recognize you normally. Could you tell me your name, please? Chris Thompson, thank you. Is there a second? All right, second, and that is? John Donaldson, thank you. We have a motion and second to approve the agenda. What I'd ask is if you agree and would vote yes on the approval of the agenda, and you are an eligible voter, please rise. All right, it looks like that motion unanimously carries. Thank you very much. We have an approved agenda. All right, and I've really given an overview here of the common questions and how we're going to run the meeting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Andy Sarno, who's the Superintendent of Business and Operations, and he's going to present the proposed budget. So, Mr. Sarno.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. It's one of these times during the year, and typically the podium is turned just slightly, a little bit more focus to the school board. I enjoy this as an opportunity to stay connected, to make sure that we are responsive, and I think that one of the things that you'll hear this evening, whether it's the 6:30 meeting or even the 7 o'clock annual meeting with the 3 resolutions as a part of that meeting, is that this is really for you to be able to speak, for the board to listen. Much of this information is still preliminary. We've made some assumptions and some calculated estimates that will be finalized, but we do have a board meeting on October 10th that other items of the budget could be discussed at that point in time, with final information on the 24th. And so this really is your meeting for you, which is why the podium is turned slightly tonight. I have a few slides that I'd like to go over. They're very typical information, that some of it is required, and then as well, just a brief presentation of what was in the newspaper 10 days in advance per state statute to share some additional information specific to the budget. And as well, I'll go over a little bit of what you'd received in the packet, but thank you so much for attending tonight. We are here tonight. It's a state statute that requires this, so statute 65.90. We are required to have this meeting from the middle of May to the end of October. These 2 meetings have to happen. Again, very happy to be here, to stay connected with you, to keep all of our communities connected. The agenda, Mr. Zweigert went over that. Brief presentation after this, and we did not discuss, but there is a, typically at school board meetings, anybody that wishes to grab a comment card, they're in the back. We ask that you fill that out. Either you can actually share information, or grab the comment card, and you have up to 3 minutes to be able to share your information. But that is the last part of the meeting after I have this presentation, the actually community questions and comments. The information that is presented tonight was as of September 6th. Because of the newspaper publication that has to happen at least 10 days in advance of the meeting, we have a cutoff date for that. So lo and behold, the information will change between now and October 24th, when the school board takes final action on the final budget, the final levy, and the final mill rate. We receive information from the Department of Public Instruction, the Department of Revenue. This year it will be on Friday, October 14th. So some of these numbers will change just a little bit, still working with some staffing information, but generally speaking, this information is a couple of weeks old, but the framework of it is very sound. It's a living document. Budgets are meant to be changed if the spend plan of the district changes and evolves over the course of time. It's very typical where an amended budget would come forward in the spring. That's been historically here in May or June, but I just wanted to disclose that. So even if we believe we have the best information either tonight or on October 24th at that final board meeting, there's most likely going to be an amended budget that will be brought forward in the spring. Historically, many districts have a variety of information that they bring forward at this point in time. I didn't want to overwhelm you with all of these different bullets, but this is what's included in that budget packet. I think it's 32 pages. There's some celebrations. There's some things that are part of the annual meeting. We have some communications that we're trying to showcase. There is about a 14-page informational piece on school finance. I've even linked in this document, which is available online on the district's website. We'll make sure that gets uploaded. We have links to the Finance 101, how school finance works in Wisconsin. But it's a fairly comprehensive, it's a little bit thicker than what we've utilized in the past, but I wanted to make sure that everybody has the ability to grab the information that makes them comfortable with what we're sharing tonight. So that's just a little bit more comprehensive of a budget book that we've put in the past. It's always important to share the mission, preparing all students for college readiness and career success, our vision with excellence for all. A lot of the decisions that we make, what we strive for is aligning those directives to how we're spending the money and what initiatives, what programs we offer. So it's very important we take that to heart, is that we have specialists and we have individuals that are very passionate. We make sure that we monitor that throughout the year with a different activity. We make sure that this initial budget is inclusive of those decisions as much as possible. In the past, I've actually had an 11 by 17, just a big fold-out sheet, and I call it the 5 graphs. There's 5 different pieces of information that are really important for us to know. And I differentiate between historical information in the blue and estimate at this point in time. But what is our membership? So those are the students that we're able to count. They drive our revenue, but we're able to count that. So over the course of the last 10 or so years, we've been having declining enrollment. Last year we had a little bit of an uptick, but I think that's before the 1 year before that, 2020, 2021, we had a little bit of a downtick, a little bit more than traditional, because that was year 1 of COVID. I think some folks, community members and parents were still a little bit nervous. But as we have a trend line, we continue to have declining enrollment. So what we're doing right now is graduating more seniors every year than kindergartners that are replacing them. So that's trickling through our system. We can actually see that by grade level through our schools. But we do have declining enrollment. Again, this was an estimate as of September 6th. School had started, but we do have the 3rd Friday count that actually was just recently. We're finalizing that information, and then the October 24th school board meeting will include final count information, both who's enrolled in the district, who's our member, who we get to count for our revenue limit purposes, but I just wanted to share a graphical representation of who we get to count. The second thing, and this is starting to turn into a little bit of a parabolic curve for those mathematicians, we continue to see property value growth that is increasing, and increasing just a little bit faster than the rest of the state. We have a solid industry in our areas. We have solid residential values in our area. Statewide was right around 14% growth. This is an estimate from our financial advisors at Baird, but we're anticipating seeing about a 14% increase, slightly larger than the state average that they're projecting. But property values increasing again, which has been happening now for several years. The last time that we saw a decrease was that last year in 2013-14, which was still a product of the last recession. Another piece that's really important, because when we look at the funding formula, we calculate our revenue limit. That's the total dollar amount that we have access to. We then subtract out how much money the state gives us as a part of a funding formula, and that's what this graph represents. So over the last couple of years, we'd seen a little bit of a fluctuation with our general state aid. Again, this is one of the 2 large pieces of revenue that we have in our district. But this year, where we did have a couple of year decreases, we're more property rich. The state says you're more property rich. You can raise those dollars within your community, put that on property taxes. As a part of the biennial budget this year, the state had infused more dollars in this funding formula that goes into this revenue, the general state aid revenue. So you're seeing that now. So we are projecting about a 2.9% increase in this general state aid. Conversely, what that means is, again, with the revenue limit minus that state aid, which went up, our property taxes, or our levy, the dollar amount that we're asking of all property owners across the district, is going to be going down. So number one, the state gave more money, therefore our property taxes are responsible for less. And then additionally, something that we'll share throughout the presentation and even into the next meeting is that this will be the last year of the 2009 and 2012 referendums. It'll be the last levy. We still owe some dollars, and I reflect that later in the presentation, but it's the last year we'll be levying for that. The final payment won't be made until April of 2026. But all in all, less money that the communities that represent our school district are going to be responsible for through property taxes. When we calculate the mill rate, or the percentage that people pay, which is per $1,000 of assessed value, we had 4 years. We'd seen a steady decline over the past several years. There's 4 years where we'd seen a flat mill rate of $7.97, again, per $1,000 of value. This year, again, because the state infused more money, We're completing that debt levy. We will now see about a 20% decrease in our mill rate. So I'm projecting at this point in time about a $6.28 mill rate. So noticeably lower, but we also saw earlier that property taxes, the equalized value, your values may go up, but the actual taxation rate is going down by more than that. So 14% growth, 20% mill rate decrease. Just a little bit of information that's required to share at this meeting and some additional information that we'd like to share. So fund balance, I will share our equity or our net financial position, our existing debt, as well as our statutory debt capacity, because what we actually have in debt is very low compared to what we have authorization to enter into pending referendum approval. We also have to share our other post-employment benefit trust, which is the information that we have in reserve for retiree benefits. And then as well, I need to share or disclose the Community Services Fund, which is our Fund 80, all the programs and the dollar amounts related to that fund. It's a designated fund for things outside of a typical school day. And then as well, I just like to disclose, so these are estimates and assumptions leading into that October 24th meeting coming up here in a few weeks. Again, I anticipate a little bit discussion at the October 10th meeting, and then we'll make final adjustments 2 weeks later. Fund balance. So this is the district's cash equivalent of assets minus liabilities. It is not just the cash in hand, money that is either in the bank or not in the bank. Debt agencies, it's very important to them. It shows financial health of the district. It allows for unexpected large costs. $500,000 boiler breaks. There's a roof that needs to be addressed. Expenditures, large capital projects that we don't anticipate that happen throughout a year, so it allows for some flexibility. We do have a board policy, policy 662.3, that talks about fund balance. It has some goals and objectives within that, and it discloses that we should have a targeted fund balance of 14 to 18% of unassigned, meaning it's not designated for a specific purpose. I would like to state, and I'm very happy about this, is that our cash position in itself, again, not necessarily fund balance, which has also grown, but our actual cash flow over the last several years, we last short-term borrowed because money coming in does not always equal money going out that businesses may see. But we've not needed to short-term borrow in several years now. I don't anticipate that we will need that again. Otherwise, I would probably be coming forward for authorization to short-term borrow. But our financial health of our district continues to be strong. We have an unassigned fund balance at this point in time of, I see an extra percentage, I apologize for that, of just under 13%. That's as of June 30th of 2022. That's unassigned. It's also unaudited. We're nearing the completion of our audit, and I will make sure that that final dollar amount is reflected when we bring the audit, typically in November or December timeframe. We do also have money set aside for the Jackson Trust. That's held in our general fund. It's in a designated account. We purchased some land several years ago. I think it was in January of 2019, but the remainder is $1.5 million to be held for a future project if and when that happens. Additionally, we have a self-funded health insurance through the district where we have to set aside per auditing requirements a certain dollar amount equal to make sure that we're fiscally solvent, which is $3.2 million. That's unchanged from last year's audit. Again, unaudited dollar amount, but projecting that out. Updated fund balance classifications, as I indicated, will be coming forward when we bring the audit in either November or December. Standard & Poor's rating. So we utilize, there's a couple different rating agencies, not too much different than if you were to go to a bank for a mortgage, they will run your credit. We use Standard & Poor's. There's different tiers. We are considered a AA negative. It's in the top tier. That was in July of 2021 when we refinanced about $10 million of debt. It's important because, and this was something that we heard loud and clear, which is why we've been able to build up our equity or our fund balance over the last couple of years. It's very important. One of the things is that this rating, it doesn't just take the district's finances into consideration. It's also based on local economies, other governmental health, debt rating, debt ratios, but that's all considered when we have this discussion with Standard & Poor's. I always like to disclose, because one of the pieces, and you'll see this in that referendum column, but what debt do we have outstanding? So non-referendum debt is debt that the board is allowed to enter into. There's a couple of statutory requirements that they need to meet when that happens, but we have some debt dated back several years. We have 2 years left, so this year and next year, we do have some fund balance that's built up, some equity that can be used for next year's, but at this point in time, just under $2 million of non-referendum debt. Our existing referendum debt, where we do have a little over $10 million of principal, about $860,000 of interest, we've also levied, again, this year will be the last levy that will be needed pending the calculation of some interest income as that debt becomes due, but we will be debt-free at the end of this fiscal year, where we still have a couple of payments through April of '26. It's not anticipated that we'll need to levy any additional dollars. So the total indebtedness of the district at the fiscal year end will be under $2 million. The interesting part in that 14.2% property value growth, we are now have property value of over $6.8 billion. Statutorily, we're allowed to enter into debt, again, per community approval of 10% of that, or translating to $681 million. We're just under $2 million at fiscal year end. That it represents 0.27% of our authority, or 0.027% of the actual ratio. So it's not uncommon for districts to be debt-free. However, yet at the same time, we're in a solid financial position moving forward. I have included, again, we've levied additional dollars over the past several years. I've included those dollar amounts, which is called defeasement, and there's board action that took place this spring, but I've included those defeased dollars since they've already been levied and purposed for the debt repayment. One of the other areas, again, this is other post-employment benefit trust. We need to disclose the information. As of last July, about 15 months ago, we had $5.8 million in reserves for future liabilities. Last year, we made contributions of just over $1.6 million, with expenditures just under 1.4. So we had an ending balance of just in excess of $6.1 million. This fund is not required. There are financial benefits of doing so. One of the big pieces is where we do have other funding sources that assist the district. One of the big pieces of this, and I disclose this, is it's setting up a situation where we can plan for the future and make sure that we minimize impact of this future liability. Another requirement is that we disclose our Fund 80. Again, with our fund accounting, one of the silos that we have is our community services fund, so it's programs and services outside of the typical school day. We have 5 different programs that operate in this right now. Our Badger Middle School co-curricular offerings, just under $120,000. Silverbrook has started a co-curricular offering that's more defined than it has been in the past, of approximately $33,000. Currently, our school liaison officers of $185,000 contract with the city police department. We have our community partnerships and engagements of approximately $133,000. And then, again, anything outside of the typical school day, which we have facility use where we do charge some groups. There's other activities that the district absorbs those costs of approximately $130,000, translate into this fund having total activity of $600,000. I would like to note, and it's important to do so, the school resource officers, the school liaison officers, they do reach out to our public schools and private schools, as well as Badger and Silverbrook when they offer co-curricular offerings. They're in, it's expected that they will offer that to homeschooling and private school students. The proposed budget summary for this year, so we have a balanced general fund. That's always a talking point as we develop this, and I'll start talking about when we'll start the next budgeting process. But the entire duration of the last 9 months has been to make sure that we have a balanced general fund budget. There are other funds that may have fluctuations. However, both surplus as well as deficit, but those have been estimated based on activity that we anticipate, and we continue to monitor that. All identified and anticipated expenses today are included. In fact, I could have probably asterisked that because even just over the last 2 weeks, we've been working with our core departmental teams. There are some areas that we can continue to sharpen the pencil, make some adjustments that will be reflected on October 24th. Our September third Friday count is underway. We're nearing completion of that. Again, that will be brought forward very soon. And as I indicated, statutorily, it's October 15th when the Department of Revenue and the Department of Public Instruction is required to provide final information for our final levy. Our chart of accounts reflects any state and federal requirements. We are in accounting, proper accounting with that. Our mill rate is estimated to decrease by 21.2% to $6.28. That is an estimate at this point in time, again, depending on the information that comes from the Department of Revenue and the Department of Public Instruction. That may slightly increase. I don't like to overpromise or underdeliver, but that may fluctuate slightly. As I indicated, and this was true of last November, December, we begin that next year's budgeting process. So the 2023-24 budgeting process will begin right after the board takes action on October 24th. We do have a use of the ESSER funds. We do acknowledge that they're one-time sources. We need to make sure that we're mindful of that because there is a financial implication of using those one-time dollars. The continuation of them will be through next year. We have that ability, but we need to be mindful of that dollar amount. Just very briefly, I will present some highlights. Again, all of this information was uploaded into the board documents, but after this, we'd invite any community members, eligible community members, to come down and make comments. That is the hearing. And then I believe President Zweigart would motion to ask for adjournment. What I've tried to do is capture the publication. So this was in the newspaper last Friday, September 16th, the left-hand side of the document. And then what I've tried to do is make sure that I put some notes, some very brief talking points. But again, the top section here is our general fund. So this is by fund, which is one of the main coding areas within our chart of accounts. We have a balanced general fund is being presented, and the final approval will take place on October 24th. Next section down records our general fund revenues. Property values are growing. We've documented that. It's estimated that they're going to be increasing. Property taxes will be lower because of the revenue limit constraints and the larger general state aid that we previously discussed. Item number 4, we start talking about the general state aid. So the state has infused more money into the revenue limit formula, which is what's caused the property taxes to decrease. I do see a typo that I will make sure gets updated here as well. I apologize. All in all, our revenues are anticipated to reflect approximately $81.4 million within our general fund for the 2022-23 school year. Expenditure-wise for our general fund, the 3 different areas that we record that are part of this publication are our instructional. The increase is related to the instruction and learning of the students within this first area. The second area are support areas. Again, increase related to the pupil services, transportation, maintenance, and other support, so not directly related to instruction. The third area are non-program transactions. The increase is related to special education transfer, open enrollment out. But again, in item number 10, our expenditures have reflected the revenues of $81.4 million, showing a balanced budget. Special projects funds, and again, this is classified. We have 3 different funds that go into this, and I have delineated out. This is our, we have some student gift funds, we have our special education, and then as well, we're the Head Start countywide program, but anticipated beginning balance and ending balance of our equity or our fund balance, a little over $900,000. Those are actually all dollars related to our students. So whether it's the robotics club, some of our high school athletics across all buildings, they have raised a little over $900,000 to be used for future activities specific to schools and students. So it might have been a bake sale, it might have been a fundraiser of some other sort, but anticipated activities of a little over $16 million within these 3 funds, both revenue and expenditures balancing out at the $16 million. I've already gone over a little bit of information related to the debt services fund, but we had a beginning balance of just under $6 million. This will be the last year of levying for this. We'll end up with a little over $8.8 million in our equity or our fund balance account, but the expenditures of about $6.9 million, as well as our, revenues of $6.9 million versus our $4.1 million of expenditures, so that remaining balance is what's grown that will be used for future year debt payments. Again, we'll be debt-free. We will not be levying any additional dollars for those 2009 and 2012 approved referendums. Capital projects, we have two different active funds. We have a third one where we have about $500,000 of equity from the Barton Elementary sale. But generally speaking, these are 2 different funds. They represent similar things, that it's money designated for facilities and capital improvement projects. But we've built up about $6.4 million of projects to be used at a future point in time. So this is equity that can be used. I will be using a little bit of that, but one of the resolutions at the next meeting, which will start very soon, will be the amount contributed into this fund versus of approximately $1.7 million, as opposed to the current budget of a little over $2.1 million for all of the projects that has been board approved. One of the other siloed areas that we have is our nutrition fund. So this is all the breakfast, the lunches, some of the catering. It's a self-sustaining program at this point in time. The revenues that have been coming in over the last couple of years have been due to the free meals that have been allowed through the USDA. That's been discontinued, so we're back to a paid status. So at this point in time, we're making sure we monitor participation very closely to make sure that our staffing as well as our food, that we're being efficient with that, while we're at the same time preparing nutritious, let alone tasty meals. New food service director is working on that offering, but self-sustaining program activity, revenue and expenditures of about $2.7 million. I just disclosed that financial information related to the other post-employment benefit trust. Again, reserves of $6.1 million. I'm anticipating revenues and expenditures of approximately 1.7. A little bit conservative on the expenditure side, just to make sure that we have ourselves covered, considering that that's a health insurance related benefit. Community Services Fund, we have just a slight beginning fund balance that we've been utilizing over the last several years. But revenues coming in of $570,000. I've disclosed that $599,000 for those different activities outside of the school day. The last piece that I have to share are cooperative funds. So we actually are a fiscal agent for the boys hockey. Other school districts participate in that. We've logged the revenues and expenditures related to that offering. So we're anticipating revenues and expenditures of approximately $100,000 this year. Participation has continued to grow, which is why you've seen an increase over the last couple of years. That's reconciled, no fund balances allowed. Total expenditures district-wide. Last year, at this point in time, we refunded some debt. We also defeased some debt, so there was an increase over the course of the year in how we were required to account for some of the expenditures. But generally speaking, We will see about a 14% decrease across all funds, again, due to the absence of that other debt activity. So we're just under, when I think about it, and I hope this is an okay way to state it, but we are a business, we're a public school district, but we're about a $100 million company with all of our funds, all of our activity throughout our district to educate our 6,000 students. Our property taxes, as indicated, these are our different levy amounts. You will see these as a part of the first resolution in the next meeting, totaling just under $43 million, which is just under a 10% decrease from last year. We had been seeing a little bit of an increase prior to that because we've been levying additional dollars to retire our debt, as well as we're more property rich, so the state had been giving fewer dollars up until this year. As shared in a previous slide, our mill rate, where we had been at $7.97 for the last several years, at this point in time, with the information that's available to me, I'm projecting a mill rate of $6.28 per $1,000 of value. Mr. President, if it's okay, I'd like to offer for community members. Yeah. I'll go back to the agenda.
That's perfect. All right, thank you, Mr. Sarno. So we've come to the time where we will conduct our hearing. And what we did is in advance, we had public participation slips near the entrance. And anyone who wishes to comment at this time needs to fill out a public participation slips. I have 2 here so far. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak, has a public participation card? If you do, hold it up nice and high. I'm not seeing anyone. I just would ask. You'd like to speak?
I'll bring
You'd like to speak? We'll get you a card. That would make 3. Very good. Thank you. All right, and I will read through some ground rules on this. So, public participation slips have been made available for residents to speak, and this is regarding the topic of budget only. And residents will be given 3 minutes. 3 minutes to speak. There will be a visible timer for you. And just as a reminder, every U.S. citizen, you have to be age 18 or older and have resided in this district for at least 28 days. You're eligible to speak. And each elector who wishes to speak should have a participation slip filled out. And I'll call on individuals to the microphone to my right, which is right there as I'm pointing to, and ask then that you state your name and address, and then your 3 minutes will begin. Again, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes per turn. And I'd also ask the audience that every member who wishes to discuss anything related to the budget should be afforded the opportunity to do so without interruption. And so we'd ask that attendees at the meeting not interrupt the person who is speaking. Now, one question that I did receive in advance is, at the next meeting, when we talk about the resolutions, will there be an opportunity to speak? So let me just talk about that a little bit. At the next meeting, when the resolutions are presented, I'm going to assume there may be a motion to approve it, then a second. We'll pause at that time for discussion, and at that time, individuals will have the opportunity to come forward. They'll have 3 minutes to speak, and so you can speak at that time as well. So I will raise that in advance. All right, so with that, I have 2 cards in my hand. I believe we're going to receive a third, so I will invite first Mr. Bart Williams to come forward and speak. Mr. Williams?
I'm going to defer to the annual meeting since I speak to 2 resolutions that have.
All right. Thank you. For the benefit of the recording, Mr. Williams indicated that he wishes to defer to the second meeting to talk about it at that time. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I'll then invite Mr. Bill Schultz forward. All right, Mr. Schultz, as you come forward, I'm just going to ask that you start by stating your name, and also if you could just certify that you are a resident of the district and at least 18 years old.
Yes, my name is Bill Schultz. I am a resident and taxpayer of the district, and I am over 18 years old. Thank you for the opportunity.
Very much. Appreciate that. All right, and I think we've got our 3-minute timer, correct? All right, Mr. Schultz, the next 3 minutes are yours.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm currently not making a motion, but I would just like to make aware to the public what I would like to amend to the resolution regarding the first resolution as the tax levy. My first amendment, I would like to allocate but not exceed $50,000 towards hiring an outside source and/or a private task force to do a financial study of all of our buildings and equipment in and around our buildings, similar to the study performed in the summer of 2019. I ask that the findings of this study be published on the district website as well as an email sent out to the community members. I also ask that the study be posted publicly for the community to view prior to any possible referendum regarding school expansion or increased capital projects and maintenance be placed on any upcoming ballot. My second amendment to the first resolution regarding the tax levy would be to allocate an additional $180,000 into the Community Service Fund to allow for an addition of a minimum, but not limited to, 4 school resource or liaison officers. After reviewing the results of the ESSER 3 fund survey that took place this past summer, the community has placed school safety at the top of their priority list, and allowing more school liaison resource officers to be inside our schools would be a start to keeping everyone in our schools safer. My third and final amendment to the first resolution regarding the tax levy would be to allocate $125,000, potentially from the ESSER 3 funding, towards purchasing more security cameras to be installed all throughout the outside of all of our buildings, motion detection cameras and systems at every entrance to our school, and installing door locks on every classroom in the attempt anyone would try to thwart our wonderful students and our amazing staff safety. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Oh, thank you, appreciate that. All right, yes, please. So we welcome forward Mr. Ray Sanders, and Mr. Sanders, when you reach the microphone, if you could just restate your name, please, and just certify that you're a resident of the district and at least 18 years old.
Yeah, my name's Raymond Sanders, and I've lived in West Bend since 1994.
Great.
I got 2 daughters that graduated from high school here, 2004, so I'm legal here.
Fantastic.
Okay.
The next 3 minutes are yours. Thank you.
My question is, and I see it all over the news all the time about all this COVID relief money. What happened to it? Where did it get spent? What did you get? That we need to raise taxes. I thought there was still COVID relief money set out there for the schools. No? Yeah?
Just want to be sure, have you concluded your remarks? This time is yours.
Go ahead.
No, sir, this isn't a debate. This is your time to speak.
Well, I didn't hear a peep from the speaker before that. He didn't say a word about any money that came in as COVID relief. There was nothing said. Where is this money? Did it get spent? Did it get put in people's pockets? Where'd it go? Why do they want to raise our taxes? What about all the outlying schools too? I mean, this is all for West Bend. What about Jackson? What about all these, Trenton and all these other areas that bring their kids into our schools? What are they, is their taxes going up? Are they getting money from them? I don't hear nothing about it. That's all I got to say.
Right. Thank you for your comments. What I can do is invite Mr. Sarno forward to address some of those topics. All right, Mr. Sarno.
I appreciate the opportunity to provide some clarification. So that was one of the dollar amounts that was related to, let me pull it up here. One of the line items that is in the budget publication, so federal dollars within our general fund, this is the federal sources. You can see over the course of the last several years that has increased. So we are using the final piece of ESSER 2, or excuse me, CARES, which was the ESSER 1, We'll be using the final amount of ESSER 2 and then a portion of the ESSER 3. There is a fair amount of those dollars in here, which is to balance the budget. So we're using it per the requirements and the intent of the fund. Our state legislature did not allow for any type of increase to the revenue limit. They said live on those dollars, and that's what we're doing. So those dollars are built into the budget to balance the budget. A correction, if I may, sir, is the levy, which is the dollar amount, as well as the taxation rate, is slated to decrease rather significantly from last year to this year's proposed budget that's in front of you this evening that will be acted on by the school board on October 24th. So taxes, and I'm trying to think of any scenario where somebody's value would go up and the taxation or the property tax bill would increase. I can't think of a situation where that would occur. The mill rate is going down more than what property taxes are increasing by on average across the district. I hope, and I'd be happy to discuss this with you after the meeting if you'd like to talk more.
I saw a vehicle going up and down the streets in my neighborhood, taking pictures of houses. How do they tell your value by taking that picture?
All right. Any other public participation comment cards? Just want to call last call on that. All right. Then moving on, we're going to adjourn, but before we do that, just wanted to give a little preview of what will happen next. So we'll take a 10-minute break between this meeting and the next meeting. We've concluded verifying the addresses. There are 149 of you in attendance tonight. Thank you very much. We verified your eligibility by address to participate. We know there are some individuals here who are not eligible to vote. We have identified them, and they, as I understand it, did not vote on any of the items to date. And what we'll do, go ahead.
Since we're giving a brief adjournment between this meeting and next, the restrooms are located right outside this door, but when you return to your seats, again, we have those lists. We know that there's a very small handful of number of non-residents. We've also welcomed many students here. We verified their ages. When you return, those who are eligible need to be, if you could be centered in this section, it's going to make it easier for us to do counts. We're going to ask you to stand. We're going to ask you if you agree, disagree. Perhaps some of you are abstaining, just so we have that. So again, that verification of eligibility. So if anyone needs to move into an appropriate spot, the non-resident seating is in the back row. Mr. Hanson, if you can wave. Those are all marked. Those are in the back. But again, if we could get everyone to congregate, I think it'll make a more efficient, effective meeting. And then, again, those who are not eligible, we've spoken to as well. So thank you for that. Anything else, Mr. President?
All right, nothing else here. So to facilitate that, we'll be taking a 10-minute break after the adjournment. But what I'd like to do is ask the floor for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, and that is Mr. Paul Fisher. Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Nathan Downauer. Thank you, sir. We have a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, please rise. All right, thank you. That motion overwhelmingly carries. We are adjourned, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. And as Superintendent Wimmer indicated, if we could have the individuals come forward who are eligible to vote and kind of congregate in the middle, that'll make it easier for voting. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. So we just concluded the budget public hearing for the 2022-2023 budget. This is the annual meeting of the electors of the West Bend Joint School District Number 1. It is Monday, September 26, and approximately 7:49 p.m. So I will call this meeting to order. My name is Chris Swigert, and I am the president of your school board. So I'm happy to begin to kick off this meeting. and then I'll walk through some of the ground rules. But what I'd like to do is invite you to rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you, everyone. And for the good of order, I should note that more than 24 hours in advance of this meeting, notice of the time, place, and date of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. Notice was also given to West Bend Daily News, WIBD, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that requested notice of our meetings. I just pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer, who's coming down the aisle right now, just to verify that this meeting was properly posted. Yes, it was. Right, thank you. All right, so we'll move to, since my paperwork here, move to ground rules and just talk a little bit about this meeting. So at this meeting, we're going to hear from Superintendent Wimmer, who's going to give a state of the district, and then we'll consider 3 resolutions that were proposed by the school board for this group's consideration. And then we're going to ask this group to vote on those motions, and we'll do that through a motion second process. And as I had mentioned before, and we did at the prior meeting, we'll ask you to rise. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of visually see as opposed to a voice vote. And so that's how we will move through. After a motion and a second, we'll pause for discussion on each of the resolutions, and I'll invite individuals forward at that time to speak. But I'm being a little bit presumptive because although I'm kicking off the meeting, we'll need to elect a chairperson for this meeting. So I will pause and ask if there are nominations for individuals to serve as chairperson of this meeting. Any nominations from the floor, please? Yes? All right, thank you. Nominate Chris Swigert, that would be me. And your name, please? Shelley Krieger, thank you. Are there other nominations? Oh, thank you. Any other nominations? Anyone who wishes to serve as chair? All right, hearing no other, oh, I'm sorry, we have one in the back, yes? Bart Williams, Mr. Bart Williams, all right, thank you. All right, so we have nominations for Chris Swigert and Bart Williams. Any additional nominations? All right, hearing none, we'll consider that nominations are closed. So what we'll do is I'll ask individuals to rise. First of all, any of those in favor of Chris Swigert serving as chairperson, please rise at this time. All right, and please rise and stay standing. We're going to ask folks to take a little count here. All right, please stay standing. We just want to be sure that we're conducting this meeting in order, so appreciate your patience. All right, very good. while they're tallying a vote, maybe I can just talk a little bit about a recent trip that I took. I just got back from Europe yesterday, actually, and we toured a number of countries, and one of them was Slovakia. And our tour guide went to school for 5 years to study political science, was just a really marvelous young man. And it just struck me because that country has basically been under different leadership just about every 30 years. They've just had democracy, I think it is, since the 80s. It just was remarkable how in our country, of course, we've had democracy since the beginning, and how blessed we are that, sometimes we're dealing with issues where there isn't a clear answer, and we debate it. But having seen with my own eyes, the difference, it's really, really great to be in the United States. All right, perfect. All right, we have the vote. You can sit, and what we'll do now is ask for any individuals in favor of Mr. Bart Williams serving as chairperson for this annual meeting. Please rise at this time. All right, Superintendent Wimmer.
Just announcing the verification, there were 4 voters. We gathered after each vote. We double counted each one. Results indicate that Mr. Swigert would be the one presiding over that. Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'm pleased to serve as the chair for this meeting. So just talking a little bit about ground rules, and I hinted at these already. We're going to hear next, after we approve the agenda, from Superintendent Wimmer, who's going to give a report on the state of the district, and then we'll work on those 3 proposed resolutions, and then we're scheduled to adjourn the meeting. So with that, I would ask for a motion from the floor to approve this agenda. Anyone care to make that motion? Yes? Mark Allen? Thank you very much. That's for the motion. Do we have a second? And ma'am, your name is? Jenny Orr. Thank you. We have a motion and second to approve the agenda. And ask for those individuals in favor of approving this agenda to please rise at this time. All right. By sight, that motion carries. Thank you. You may be seated. All right. Thank you. Our agenda is now approved, and at this time, I will turn this over to Superintendent Wimmer for the State of the District report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Our annual meeting occurs in September, but we've got a lot of highlights that we've been publishing through the year, so I'll capitalize on some of those. But just wanted a reminder, as Mr. Sarnow spoke, we talk about, even though we're called West Bend, we serve a multitude of communities, the city of West Bend, Village of Jackson, Newburgh, and several townships as well. We cover a large geographic area, and when you talk about our facilities, we have over 105 square miles with 1.2 million square feet of facilities that we are responsible for, almost 200 acres of property. Looking at our enrollment, we have a host of 4K sites that are a blend of our own sites at the Rolfs Building. We're one of the few that actually runs our county Head Start. Sometimes that's different from a district, so we are the leader in that as well. So with the Head Start, as well as the 4K community partnership, so we have 4K at both the Rolfs Center as well as multiple community agencies. You can see that enrollment, as well as the 5 elementary schools that we have. Our intermediate school of Silverbrook, which serves grades 5 and 6, Badger, grades 7, 8, and our 2 high schools. Enrollment, as reflected, we have not certified this count yet. That occurs on the 3rd Friday, and then gets certified and sent to DPI. It's important because that enrollment is a piece of the funding puzzle for us, but you can see we are anticipating to be up in students attending our schools. Another piece I'd like to celebrate is a kind of a portrait of our graduates. Who are they? Where are they off to after college? We survey our graduates each spring. You can see about 469 surveys were completed of 547 graduates. Our students know and understand that there are a variety of post-high school options to them. You can see that with 69% of our students exploring technical 2- or 4-year schools. Another 13% going right into work. That could include training programs, apprenticeships, internships, and employment. Graduated several students. One of my favorites was a student who graduated from us one weekend and Moraine Park another weekend with certification. So it's something we're really proud of. We have to do some verification, but I think we might be the largest technical education program in the state. We have 8 full-time faculty just in technical education, and then a host of others in our career and technical education fields, including business, marketing, communications, culinary arts, all sorts of things. 2.1% went and served in the military. We make sure and honor them at each graduation, asking them, along with all veterans or active service members, to stand for recognition. We also have a great signing ceremony for those students and invite their families, their recruiters, our board members, so that's an exciting time. And a few remain undecided at the time of their graduation, and that's okay because we know that we've prepared them well for their future, whatever path they might choose. We did partner last year with Slinger High School to offer for juniors and seniors who were kind of in that undecided track. They had over 60 businesses for students who might be interested in manufacturing. They weren't too sure just yet, and had, we chuckled and kind of called it speed dating. It was 3-minute rounds with over 60 businesses. They got to kind of fill up their dance card, go around the room, learn a lot of new things, and then go back and stop and chat a little bit longer with those employers that they were most interested in. Some walked away employed right after that, and some found a path to pursue. So really excited about the opportunities, the experiences we provide our students to try things, whether it's in even starting at intermediate school, trying different languages, trying different instruments, starting to explore some things, doing that in 7th and 8th grade. Then when they're in high school, they're selecting their classes, whether it's semester or year long. They're getting all their core classes taken care of, but it's a great opportunity for us to provide opportunities to students, for them to try things before it might cost them time and money on a false start, whether in school or a career field. So something we're really proud of. So our primary focus is to educate kids, so we're a service industry, and predominantly it's around our staff who serve students. If you were to compare, our certified staff includes those who have a license or certification degree and serve. It could include our classroom teachers, our counselors, all of those staff. There's a host of instructional support staff. That could be on some of the technical ends. That could be paraprofessional support in a classroom. And there's certainly a host of other staff members who make our schools work. So when you look at that, it was interesting because it doesn't quite tell the story. If I were to compare these numbers to last year, it almost looks like we're up, but we're actually seeing we're right-sizing everything, and we're seeing some reductions. We had a reduction in certified staff. We had some increases in instructional staff. But when you look at our overall staffing and the costs in that budget, the increases were significantly less in dollars. So we're just always making sure to look for efficiencies in that. So if you ever see any reports from Mr. Hansen, our HR person, we get into pretty detailed reports when we're projecting starting in April of each year, and then all along the way around filled, unfilled positions. We're certainly seeing some of that veteran experience. They're retiring out, so you see a reduction. Our average years of service was 16 years. We're now right almost at the 13-year mark, but certainly not a lot of newbies here. We have an amazing staff, whether they were first year out of college or they're veteran staff members. They do great work with our kids and families every day. One of the pieces that we also like to highlight is our retention rate. So when you come to West Bend, we're a place that you want to come and stay. So certainly teaching has changed. It's more of a little bit of a free agency market. Just, I believe, at our last staff meeting or our last board meeting, if you want to check board docs, Mr. Hansen gave a presentation around how this market is shifting a little bit. We know that there's kind of a pipeline shortage for teachers ahead. So it's all about creating the opportunity to recruit and retain amazing people who are in front of our kids every day. So we like to hold on to those gems when we find them. But it was very interesting. Anyone who leaves us, we conduct thorough exit interviews. And for the first time, we were seeing people actually leave the district, but leave the profession of teaching as well. So it was something, if you revisit just that last board meeting in September, there's a greater amount of detail around that and those actual numbers there. But again, still happy. There were many districts faced this year. You always hear us talk about bus driver shortage, support staff shortage, and people were really facing a teacher shortage, especially for uniquely certified positions, and we were really thankful to start with all of our certified staff in place this year. We were hearing horror stories of those who couldn't run their bus routes, and some we're untangling that piece as well, but just thankful that we're able to attract, recruit, and retain quality people to be in front of kids every day. We also participate in a few surveys, some external, some internal, around job satisfaction, but the Wisconsin Educator Development Support and Retention Survey, that's hosted by UW-Milwaukee, and our staff, we're really proud of a few indicators where we're above the state average in trust among staff, in teacher collaboration, and teachers being respected by administration for their expertise. Again, these are solid recruiting and retention pieces. When we look at other elements, and again, I invite you to visit board docs. If you're not sure where to look for some of this, we go into these reports very in depth. Again, we saw a decrease from in the 80% to 73% with job satisfaction rate, and we really talked with staff around what are things that we can do on your behalf. And overwhelmingly last year, embedded in that survey was around time. And I think that's probably universal across professions, navigating multiple people who were out sick maybe over the last year and stepping in for each other in just unprecedented numbers. Really had people stepping up, stepping in, but also a little bit exhausted by the end of the year, which is when we give this in spring. So we worked some things with our calendar, opportunities, and we'll continue to keep working alongside our staff of whether it's our teaching staff, our support staff, any category of staff members to get that back up where we would like to see that. Happy to see that there was an increase of people who plan to return. Again, we know our most critical job is to put amazing people in front of kids every day in every position. So it's really important that once we've recruited the best talent that we're able to retain them and that they plan to return. Another piece our administrators have been working really hard on over the last year is their feedback. So you can see 85% was where we were exactly last year pretty much, but having access to an instructional leader, it might be their principal, an AP, an instructional coach in the building. There's a myriad of people who help work on professional practice and how they felt that person has supported their growth. So we've done some real intentional work around coaching and feedback and making sure that's a lever that's yielding some good results and return on that investment. When summer comes along, we have a very short window of building closure. We certainly are hosting our summer programs, our Jumpstart programs. We try and consolidate those, and we have a very, always too short of a window, our Director of Buildings and Grounds and Technology would say, to execute some projects. But we were able to do quite a few facility projects. We usually forecast those and seek approval right around December and January. It's important for us to bring those forward. They're large ticket items. We need lead time on ordering, on securing work, on any bid process that we need to engage in. So if you're watching in the future, those come forward to a board generally around December, January for formal approval so that we can start that work. We've been engaged in some updating of our HVAC, heating, ventilating, air conditioning controls in various restrooms. You'll see a little asterisk. If anyone goes to McLean, that's a project. Yep, I feel ya. I got some hands up there. Those are still in progress along with their front office, and we feel, but that's, you know, some supply chain, some worker shortages, and then running into some structural issues that we need to attend to the right way. But some restrooms across the district, asphalt. You saw some of the statistics around the square footage, then the 200 acres of property. You think about all the asphalt and what that needs. We have cycles of replacement for things like roofing, asphalt, all of those things that you would think of, so that we can take care of and chip away that during our summertime. So certainly you saw us with security measures, do some pieces around our doors, some monitoring systems so that there's alerts if a door is ajar. Those are still a work in progress. We voted on those just a few months ago. Playground equipment, work in progress. You can see some of the, that's a Decorah picture. If anyone's from Decorah, that used to have a really large gully there that flooded out and created a hot mess for their playground. So we've got that cleaned up, and then several are, again, a cycle of replacement for playground equipment. So those are forthcoming. Some lockers that are being delivered. I spoke about some of the security pieces and certainly lighting. So we really get moving on those. But again, if you're interested, we always look for those to start coming forward for discussion in December. Along with our technology, again, needing a large lead time on technology, that accelerated move to one-to-one devices for our students, and making sure we're adhering to a solid replacement cycle on those devices. So this is some of the highlights from our technology work over the summer, putting 1,400 new Chromebooks for that cycle of replacement. The network security upgrades. You know, there's an interesting shift if you're looking at that market. I know Tim Harder, who's our Director of Technology, would speak to this. Just the, you know, bolstering everything so that the threat of any kind of cyber attack and our data, and making sure that we have the best and most optimal systems. Skyward Security. Skyward is an information system that houses, it runs our financial software, student software. So again, making sure everything's bolstered to a point. And then we do test that throughout the year and have an external company provide insights to us to keep that, again, strong. It's really critical. It's part of our basic foundation of keeping kids safe and secure, our staff safe and secure, and part of that is their data. And you see the multi-factor security requirements. So while I might complain about my 14-digit password that I have to change, feels like it's almost every week. It's a measure to keep everyone's data safe. One piece that I'd like to highlight, I'll go through a few things. Like I said, our annual meeting is a little bit later. Sometimes you see them in August, sometimes you see them in October. It's really, we really want to make sure it's in September when school's back in session. We've got that conduit of communication with our families and community so that we can have more people attend. But we published at the end of the year something called Vantage Point. It's found on our website, and it was to really dig in and talk about, Mr. Sarno highlighted our mission, our values that set the foundation for our work, talks about continuous improvement planning. It really digs into budget and finance, and then we fleshed out over the last year our budget and finance pages, including all of our federal dollars, so you can visit those. And Mr. Sarno is always open and accessible, even for community members. Sometimes people aren't sure who to reach out to, but if you have any financial questions, please feel free to see them or give a call to the offices, district offices, and we'll help you get routed to the right person. We really seek to increase engagement of our students, families, and community in our work. So you can see kind of that table of contents. I'll highlight a few things. We try and highlight them. One thing that we're interested in always expanding on is our communication. We try and make that opportunities. We've put out our weekly newsletter to all of our community. It's not just for our students, things like the Vantage Point. We do radio spots. We do some monthly columns, all of those pieces to try and keep people engaged and in the know. But just some great student highlights for our students. Our students are known not just here in West Bend, not throughout the state, but internationally. So we have National Merit semifinalists, we have Regional Spelling Bee winners, Scholastic Art and Writing Award winners, Battle of the Book winners, and our students, we have one of our valedictorians going to Harvard this fall started. So, and we had over $900,000 in local scholarships awarded. That's through our Columns organization. It's unique to West Bend. Not every community has that, and that's where businesses, individuals can give. Columns comes together to do some financial management, to interview students. They're always dressed in their shirts and ties. There's a lot of nervous energy, and you can hear us highlighting those things, but that's just their local scholarship designation. Certainly music highlights. Our students are winning contests. They're creating their own works as composers and doing amazing things. We try and lead our board meetings. We have student reporters, and then we have recognitions for those, and we certainly try and highlight those on the radio news and all of our communications. So if you ever have something that you want to highlight, sometimes our students are doing amazing things out in the community, not just in school. Just reach out to myself. I can get you routed to our communications person, but it's just always something great to celebrate our students. In addition to their academic accomplishments, they also are participating in art. Our students won Art Walk banner projects. I saw a very creative art teacher in the audience who really helps have our students showcase their work. The Hub showcased their work and actually extended the show this year. So if you went out to the Hub, you saw both levels filled with student work. It was amazing. So we look for opportunities for our students to showcase their talents. We also had multiple students compete at the Olympic level, not only a snowboarder, but we also had synchronized figure skaters. We have 3 state champions and state qualifiers in 11 sports. So we try and show not just, sometimes we think of just the athletic side of things, but there's robust extracurricular opportunities, different clubs, different opportunities through their core classes. Our students won culinary arts competitions. They've won in so many things. I couldn't list them all, but we try and highlight those in the Vantage publication, so I'd urge you to look at that. We also highlighted staff accomplishments. We're going to try and integrate that this year. Our staff are really dedicated and amazing. There's a few things that we do annually. It's a great time in spring when we go out and surprise a lot of our staff members. You'll see our support staff of the year named. They came from all across the district. Our Rolf's Education Foundation, those are our teachers in the classroom. You can see those winners. I've seen a couple in the audience tonight as well. And then Scott Mindel was a 2022 Teacher of the Year by our American Legion Post. So if you've seen some of the work he does with our students, our community, on behalf of our veterans in that post, it's nothing short of amazing. We received almost $100,000 in a grant for increasing our mental health services, grants from Project Lead the Way, for various things. So we're always looking for opportunities to pursue on behalf of our students and our staff. So take a look at that piece. And I'd just like to close with our commitment to continuous improvement. One of the things that we speak to at our board meetings, we do quarterly reports at the district level. And then we have been doing, at the second meeting of each month, highlighting schools where they go through, this represents our commitment to continuous improvement. It's a focus on student learning, especially in literacy and math, and increasing our student achievement across all measured pieces, whether it's internal assessments, external. We write goals at the school level, at the classroom level, and at the district level. Our middle section is around engagement, customer satisfaction. Our customers are our students, our staff, our community, and we look at some of those surveys that I talked about, the retention rate, making sure that we're delivering a quality product. And our foundational pieces are, I spoke briefly about safety and security, our student behavior. We just did a large highlight on that. So make sure you're taking a look throughout the year in board docs. Our meetings are captured live or they're archived on YouTube, so you can always watch them. Maybe it doesn't fit your schedule, but we hope that our work is accessible to you. If it's not, if you have an idea to make that more accessible, please reach out. Because we want to be a district that everyone in our community is proud of, and that we're constantly growing and increasing our achievement across all levels. So look for those reports to come before the board on our continuous improvement. And with that, I would close and bring us to our annual resolutions.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Wimmer. We'll move on in our agenda then to the consideration of the proposed resolutions. And at a prior board meeting, there were 3 resolutions that were presented for consideration. Let's see here. Just to verify, I'm driving. All right, just to be sure. Thank you. Absolutely, thank you. All right, so there are 3 resolutions, and these were proposed by the school board to give to you, the electors, to consider. So what we'll do is we'll go through these one at a time, and then I will pause and ask if there are motions to accept or amend them. We'll consider those. We'll have discussion. If anyone wants to come forward to the podium, they'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and then we will vote on the motions as they're presented, all right? So the first resolution is resolution number 1 for the tax levy. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to begin with the advisory notes on the bottom because this is very important, and that is this is an advisory resolution. It's not binding, and so you might ask, well, then why are we voting on it? Because voting on this or an amended version of this is very, very instructive to the school board. Also, as noted, the Department of Public Instruction and Department of Revenue Information is not totally yet available, which is why there needs to be some flexibility here. And this is consistent with prior years, but I just wanted to point this out and just remind the community, be very clear that this is an advisory resolution and is non-binding, but is very instructive and helpful to the school board. So with that, the school board proposed the following resolution. Resolved by the electors of West Bend Joint School District Number 1, West Bend, Wisconsin, that there be, and hereby is, levied on the taxable properties within the confines of the district, taxes in the amount of $42,852,512, including $6,902,189 to be applied on long-term debt obligations of the district, $1,725,000 to be applied to the Capital Projects Fund, $550,000 to be applied to the Community Services Fund, and the balance of $33,675,323 to be applied to the General Fund for the 2022-2023 school year in accordance with the recommendation of the school board. So with that, I'm going to pause and ask if there are any motions with regard to this particular resolution. Any motions? Yes, sir. Mark Allen, a motion to approve. Thank you. Is there a second? Sir? Paul Deschamps, thank you. And that is a second. All right, we have a motion and second in support of this resolution. I will now open it up for discussion. Are there any individuals who wish to come forward for discussion? You please just kind of line up toward the podium on the right-hand side. Any individuals? Thank you. And what I'll do then is I'll ask you in turn to announce your name and verify that you are a resident of the district. And the next 3 minutes will be yours. I'm just going to ask, I think we have a 3-minute timer that is, oh, and you're right behind me, a 3-minute timer that's available, so that's squared away. Whenever you're ready. Okay, very good. All right, if you could please announce your name and if you could verify that you are a resident of the district, please.
Sure, yes, Bill Schultz. I am a resident taxpayer of the district, and I am over 18 years old.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next 3 minutes are yours.
So as I stated earlier, I would like to amend or file a motion to amend the first resolution regarding the tax levy. I guess my plan, the 50,000, or not to exceed $50,000, I would like that to come from the ESSER 3 funding. Some of you may know, some of you may not. Being an active participant at the school board meetings, I've learned that that money is almost available for pretty much anything. There are some restrictions. So with that, I would like to, up to $50,000 for the private fund or an outside source and or a private task force to do a financial study on all of our buildings and equipment. The second amendment, which I believe was to add $180,000 into the community service fund. I would like that to be somehow, some way, a continued expense. And even I think that may be a little low, but I would like to start at $180,000. So I'm not exactly sure on the politics and the budget reallocation. I would not say that money should come from ESSER because these are one-time funds. So if it's funded with $180,000 next year, well, where's it going to come from next year? And the next year, we still need school liaison and resource officers inside of our schools to keep our kids and staff safe. The third and final amendment, which would be to allocate $125,000 to purchase security cameras to be put up outside of our buildings, video detection components or cameras as well to be put at every entrance, and what was the third one here? Door locks to put inside the classroom door. The cost per lock, and I understand that we have a lot of classrooms at the district, inside the district, but they're anywhere between $75 to $150 from one company that I looked at. So depending on, I guess, you get what you pay for. You go with the cheaper one, you may not get the greatest product, so to speak, but I would like that money to come from the ESSER 3 fund allocation because of the fact that, for the most part, it is a one-time fee. We've got, say, I'm just using this as an example, we've got 300 doors, we need to purchase, we're going to go with one that's $100. Well, my trucker education math, that's $30,000. And that's mostly a one-time fee, again. So I would like to make those amendments I would like to file a motion to amend the tax levy, which is the first resolution. Thanks for the time.
Before you leave the podium, can I ask verification?
Sure.
Thank you. $50,000 ESSER study of facilities, because that was one-time dollars.
Correct.
$180,000 to the community service fund. Can you specify what that's for? We just want to make sure and frame an amendment for you, as stated.
Yes. The current allocation for school liaison and resource officers.
Thank you.
So I believe $185,000.
Yep.
So starting, just as a start, I would like to double that. So I guess if it's 185, I thought it was 180. Whichever
Yep.
number is
Nope,
correct.
I understand. So those were the 2 points of amendment that you would like to make to the budget. Was there a third piece?
Yes. The first
$125,000 for additional security, correct?
additional security as video detection cameras, school security cameras outside the schools. I personally don't think that we have enough of that. And then bear with me here. Installing locks on the inside of doors on the terrible occasion that an intruder would try to, disrupt our teachers' teaching and our kids or students' learning.
Just
So-
for verification for the audience, when you speak about locks, you're talking about inside classroom doors, your mention of staff?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
It's a
thank you.
particular lock that, when installed, say there would be I don't know what code it is, but a code red that there's a possible active shooter,
Sure.
that the teacher could go straight to the door instruct the kids on what to do and where to
Sure.
go, and they could lock the door within 10 seconds.
Right, thank you for that verification. So you're seeking an amendment that utilizes $50,000 in ESSER funding for a study of facilities to come from an external source, $180,000 in community service funds to increase SLO presence in schools, and $125,000 to be used for safety, specifically to video detection systems, security cameras, and locks on the inside of doors to protect classrooms' internal rooms.
The last one, not only classrooms, but I guess I would say any building where a person is inside of.
Perfect, so you'd like to look at just leaving that as locks? That would increase safety, and that would be internal and external, both?
Can you,
Sure, I can say that again. $125,000 was for your safety item. That included video detection, security cameras, and locks. The first verification was on inside, but I'm seeking, is it just general locks for safety for interior, exterior, anywhere that students and staff are present?
inside and outside, yes,
Thank you.
correct.
Thank you for that verification.
Thank you, Jen Wimmer.
We have an amendment on the floor.
Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. What we're going to do is, I assume that is a motion to amend. Is that correct, Mr. Schultz? You're there? Great. All right. So the motion to amend would be to keep the existing language, but add to it recommendation of the school board, comma, with $50,000 of ESSER funds to be dedicated to a study of facilities, $180,000 increase to community services for additional SLO, $125,000 for video detection, security cameras, and locks on the inside of doors,
Which was amended to inside, outside.
inside and outside. Thank you. Does that restate it sufficiently? Correct. That's correct. All right. So that's a motion. Do we have a second to amend the resolution? Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name. Sue Kellum. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. What we can do is we will continue discussion, and when discussion concludes, then we will start with that motion and kind of work our way out. So I invite our next speaker, please, Mr. John Donaldson. I recognize you even under these lights. So I'd ask that you simply verify that you are eligible to vote in this district.
Yep, name's John Donaldson, eligible resident taxpayer in the district. You
Thank
don't need
you.
me to state my address to you, because I'm not
Nope,
going
that
to.
is totally fine. We're good. Thank you. The next 3 minutes are yours.
All right, as stated before by Mr. Sarno, the largest component of our budget, and you can see it in the budget packet, is salaries of staff to serve our students. When thinking about this, we have to think about how we are obviously using this in like Mr. Sarno said, as a kind of a business, model. So I just want to make sure and ensure that our tax dollars and our money that we're paying into the school district are actually going to benefit the students, and that we're just not paying up, upping salaries every year for nothing. I would like to make sure that we are doing performance-based salary increases every year, and that we have money allocated aside to make sure that we're doing audits on teachers and stuff like that. It doesn't, I see you looking, I'm not off, am I, Mr. Sarno? I'm not, because this is definitely pertaining to the budget. Making sure that we're doing performance-based salary increases will ensure quality and outcomes for bettering the students, and helps motivate our teachers to reach their potential. Obviously, I'm not making an amendment, but I want to make sure that we're ensuring that our tax dollars are actually going to bettering our students and bettering our district by ensuring performance-based salary increases. I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. I'd ask anyone else to come forward for participation, for comment. Good evening. Could you please state your name and certify that you are eligible to vote in the district, please?
I'm Bart Williams, district resident, taxpayer, former board member, parent, eligible, speaker, and voter.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Williams. The next 3 minutes are yours.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to point out one quick data difference. I've talked to Ms. Wimmer about it, but it's something that should be corrected for next time. If you noticed on page 25 of the handout, Mr. Sarno's numbers showed a drop of 133 students for this year. Ms. Wimmer said we're going up 178 students. That's a difference of 311 students. And really, the data should have been synced for the same type of presentation on the same evening. If one was old, then it should have been updated. I hope you noticed, but check on 25. It says down 133. Ms. Wimmer said up 178. That shouldn't be. Just call it out. I just want to talk about education and some budgetary priorities. Education should really be based on objective truth. If it's not, let's not just honestly call it education. It's something else. It's leftist indoctrination, it's communism, it's intentional deception of our students, but it's not education. In the 1950s, communist Bella Dodd stated that communists would divide America using racism, so communists could take over. The proposed untrue leftist racist against whites and anti-family social studies indoctrination called critical race indoctrination, some call it CRT, and communist so-called social emotional learning, SEL.
Mr. Williams, I just wanted to pause. I just want to be sure this pertains to the budget.
It does.
Can you explain how? I just want to be sure.
Yes, because I'm proposing getting rid of the funding for those two very objectionable items.
I see. Please proceed.
Okay. Anyway, it's designed to turn our kids basically against their families and turn them toward the big state schools and leftist government, away from their parents who are their primary educators. We'd be foolish to think that the name of that is really what it is. It's not. It's all a cover. It's also squeezing out real learning, which is teaching our children objective truth, how to read, write, authentic American and world history, true science versus junk science, logic and rhetoric, critical reasoning skills, art, music, physical education, and so forth. So believing that SEL is really that, we're fooling ourselves. This should not be squeezing out real education. So, given all of that, I support and hereby offer an amendment to the annual Westminster School District budget to remove all funding for untruthful, racist, divisive, critical race indoctrination, and SEL from the budget. These lies have no place in our schools and do not deserve a penny of the taxpayers' hard-earned money, especially when our student achievement is consistently lagging. Mr. Sarno said we have a capital improvements replacement fund. We do. We started it when I was on the school board. And we have capital needs. Therefore, I would propose that we, with the elimination of CRT and SEL funding, we put that into the capital projects fund and fund that with that money instead. Thank you.
I'd like to just do the same verification. You're seeking an amendment to the budget as stated to remove social emotional learning for that?
And funding for critical race indoctrination.
Okay, I can make sure that that's so stated. That is not a levied item. That would be in the budget piece. What I can do to be respectful of that ask is bring that forward back to the board. Anytime an expenditure would be connected to that for approval on those pieces. It's not a specific levy. You see what I'm saying on that? Those would just be expenditures within the budget.
I guess what you're saying is you don't have one line item specifically for that, it's kind of spread out as expenses?
Not in the levy information as stated. What we could do is make a commitment to our community that anything associated with those goes through curriculum regardless of the cost associated, that it goes through curriculum and our board for approval to be sensitive to the community needs. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm representing that piece. Would you like to remove that motion, or would you like to still make the motion and have the electorate vote on that?
I'd like to still keep it. I think Mr. Schultz was asking for just a reallocation of existing funds.
Sure.
It's that same thing. Now, I'm not saying it comes from ESSER or some of the other CARES funds, but it is money that the taxpayers are spending, and it is a component of the budget and the levy.
Not a problem. I can make sure and include that then as a separate amendment to that, just understanding that. I think we've explained that, as Mr. Williams and I have worked that out to the public. We'll make sure and restate that when the amendment comes around. Thank you for that. Yep.
All right, are there others who wish to engage in participation at this point regarding the resolutions that we have? Anyone else? All right, so what we'll do is, I think Superintendent Wimmer is typing these up to make sure we've got the wording correctly. Just want to be sure so that we all know what we're voting on. So just give us a little pause here. We'll make sure that we have this typed up, and I'll come back, read it, and then we can vote on these various resolutions and amendments.
Okay, then I'll. Right here.
All right, we had a first amendment. So again, we're going to go through our amendments as presented, and then our other resolution as well. So we're going to, centered around that first item, we'll be hearing three things, okay? Our first one was an amendment made by Billy Schultz. Billy, if you want to take a look at this with me. I tried to highlight, I'm drawing your attention, if you can see me going back and forth. The first was to amend that piece, the general levies for some pieces. The next piece was in the community funds. You can see it right here. The 730, it was from $550,000 for the community service part. So that the first one is around the Essers ask, which is the $50,000. I'll restate those. The next one was there, and the other is an expenditure within. So I noted all three. So you can see the numerical values that needed to change have changed. I've highlighted that. I'm like, try and stay away from that pad. And then in the very end, it says these amounts should include $50,000 from ESSER funding for an external study of facilities, $180,000 for the addition of school liaison officers, and $125,000 for safety and security of students. I should include staff. You mentioned that. I apologize. If you can hold that, I'll do that right now. So we're looking at the same thing. My apologies. Trackpad. This is the day I forgot my bifocals, you guys. I'm hurting up here. I know, I'm like, someone needs to give me some cheaters. Can you, Tim, can you, I'm like, thanks, Nance. I need this to, I know. Tim, I don't know if it's the way the setting is on slideshow view. I'm trying to get it to accept staff in here, and it won't. Sorry. I know you stated that, Billy, and I'm trying to get that in to be reflective. Sorry, you can edit on mine. I got it. I know, they never give me permission for anything, right? Like, go to my other. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me. I appreciate it. And my staff members in the audience, I apologize. I did not mean to leave you out. All right. Again, you can see those, I didn't touch the financials. These amounts should include the $50,000 from ESSER funding for an external study of facilities, $180,000 for the addition of school liaison officers, and $125,000 for safety and security of students and staff, to include video detection, security cameras, as well as locks for both internal and external doors. That's the first amendment that's before the electorate. We had a second to that motion that was made, so it would be now time to vote on that piece. I'll let the board president and facilitator walk us through that.
All right. Thank you for your patience. We just want to be sure that the wording is correct, so we all know exactly what we're voting on, so we appreciate that. All right, so we have a motion and a second to amend the resolution to include the language that Superintendent Wimmer just walked through. We've had discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a vote on this amendment. So the way it would work is I will ask in a moment, not yet, for those in favor to rise. So if you're in favor of the amendment, you will rise. If you're not in favor, you would remain seated. So with that, I will, yes, go ahead, please. To add $50,000, let's see. 50,000. Mr. Schultz, does this accurately reflect your motion?
I appreciate the comment. What was done is in that first dollar amount of the $43,032,512, the math, in my humble opinion, is $180,000 more. So we increased the overall levy by $180,000, which is reflected in this line item specific to the to the Community Services Fund, which had been at $550,000. Plus 180 equals 730. So that was the $180,000 increase. So that is actually one of the levies particular to this resolution, is the actual levy. So captured the $180,000 for the school liaison officers, and I think the other language was $50,000. Yep, $50,000 ESSERs for the facility study, and another $125,000 for safety and security of students and staff, specific to video detection, security cameras, and locks. Mr. Schultz, correct?
Just to be clear, the $50,000 for the building study and the $125,000 for the locks, the cameras, I would like that to be funded from ESSER.
That's documented as a part of ESSER. That's not a part of the levy. But again, this is where Mr. Zweigert, president of the board, indicated very advisory in how we can incorporate some of these thoughts into that October 10th board meeting, and then setting that final budget and levy on October 24th. So thank you. Okay, absolutely.
Yes, comment.
Yeah, and I understand this is advisory, but are we saying that the levy would increase with these amendments, which I support, by the way, from a total of $42,852,512 to $43,032,512?
Yes.
My question would be, I'm not trying to write it on anyone's parade, and again, I support these, but is that even legal? Here's why. If this is a maximum levy budget, I don't think you can go above that if proposing it.
Thank you for bringing that up. Some of these levies are within the revenue limit, which is the general fund, our community service, our capital projects fund, and part of our debt levy. So this budget that's presented, the original resolution was levying to the maximum allowable authority. The other areas that the district can levy additional dollars is for referendum debt in the Community Services Fund. We can't levy any additional dollars for debt because we are out of debt. Those referendums will be paid off once we levy this year. However, that Community Services Fund, we can increase that by $180,000 as was motioned, because that's a allowable expenditure within that Community Services Fund, Fund 80. So that is allowable, Mr. Williams. Thank you for asking.
All right, thank you. So we have the proposed text up here. So what I'm going to do is, just as a reminder, you will rise if you are in favor of changing this to this language. If not, you would remain seated. So with that, all in favor of changing and amending the resolution as displayed on the screen, please rise. And I'll ask you to remain standing as we do a count. All right, thank you. We have the tally. You can be seated. Now, those not in favor of changing this, of amending this resolution and keeping it the way that it was, please rise at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep your comments to yourself while we exercise the vote. Please keep order to this procedure. All right, thank you. You may be seated. Based on the vote, this motion did not carry. So we will revert back to the original text of the amendment. However, we will now consider Mr. Williams' amendment. And Superintendent Wimmer? All right, excellent.
Bear with me, I had a couple slides in case that amendment passed. In looking at that second amendment, it was, again, not including that first amendment, but the specification that no funds from the district shall be utilized to purchase social emotional learning or critical race theory curriculum. So that is the amendment before you right now. So no changes to the financial components, if you want to call for that vote. Yes? Oh, thank you for that clarification.
yes,
Was
thank
there a
you.
second? It was, I want to say.
There was
it
a second.
Callum?
Yes.
Thank you for verification.
Yep, thank you. All right, so we have a motion, we had a motion and second in favor of this amendment, all right, and it's in front of you here. So I'll call for another vote. And so what I'm going to ask is, those in favor of amending this language accordingly, you would please rise at this time if you're in favor of changing the amendment. Okay. Very good. All right, that count is complete. Very good. Please be seated. Those not in favor of amending the resolution accordingly, please rise at this time. Please stay standing while the vote is counted. Thank you. You may be seated. Based on the tally, that motion did not carry. So we will revert then back to the original text. We had a motion and a second for this resolution. And the original is, let's see if I've got it here. Is it the first one? No. Let's see.
Yep.
That's all right. All right. So there's a motion and second to approve this resolution. This is the original resolution. And at this time, I would ask for those in favor of this resolution to be adopted. Please rise at this time. Vote, count. Count them out. right, you have that down. Great. Please be seated. Those opposed to the adoption of this resolution, please rise at this time and be counted. Thank you. You may be seated. Based on the tally, that vote carries. So this resolution is adopted. And I just want to pause and thank everyone as we count this. This is a very, very important vote. And so we wanted to be sure that we had this accurately captured. So thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to resolution number 2, which is disposal of district property. And again, I'm going to start with the administrator's notes. So the board has adopted policy 690. And policy 690 is in agreement with the text of this particular resolution. And the idea is, rather than having to come back to the voters year after year for a $10,000 disposal authorization, the idea would be that the language of this resolution, which is adopted in board policy, would be permanent and would remain in effect, would not come back to the voters unless and until the board wanted to change or amend policy 690, so changing the dollar amount, whatever it is. But essentially, by approving this resolution, you'd be approving that the board would use policy 690, which is in accordance with the language that I'll read in a moment, and like I said, it would remain that way unless and until the board wanted to change it. So you wouldn't need to see it again year after year if it remained unchanged. So with that background, the text of the resolution is, be it resolved that electors support the alignment of School Board Policy 690, disposition, disposal of school property, adopted March 7, 2022, which determines that items, whether individually or grouped for a single transaction, estimated to have a resale or other fair market value of $10,000 or more, may be disposed of only if the school board has expressly approved the specific disposition or expressly authorized the administration to dispose of the specific pieces of property under approved parameters, takes effect in perpetuity in lieu of this annual resolution, unless the language of School Board Policy 690 were to change at a future point in time. Is there a motion in support of adopting this resolution? If so, please raise your hand. Thank you. Mark Allen, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? Ma'am? Kate McCall? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause for discussion. Does anyone wish to come to the podium to discuss this particular resolution? Anyone at all? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So what we'll do then, since there's a motion and a second, is we'll take a vote on adopting this resolution. Would all those in favor of adopting this resolution please rise? What we're going to do instead is we'll do this visually. Please have a seat. All those not in favor of adopting this resolution, please rise at this time. All those not in favor of adopting the resolution. All right. Thank you. Based on that, this motion carries and the resolution is adopted. We'll move then to resolution number 3, which is board member composition. And again, with the administrator notes, the current rate for school board members is $5,000 and $5,200 per officer. That was approved at last year's annual meeting. It had been $2,500 and $2,600 prior to that. So the resolution this year maintains the compensation that's currently in place. And the text is resolved by the electors of West Bend Joint School District Number 1, West Bend, Wisconsin, that the salaries of the elected members of the school board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1, West Bend, Wisconsin, be fixed at the sum of $5,000 per year per member and $5,200 per year per officer. Be it further resolved by the electors of West Bend Joint School District Number 1 that board members be paid their actual and necessary expenses in traveling outside the school district in performance of duties, including mileage at the rate established from time to time and by board policy, which rate shall not be greater than the maximum amount allowed by the Internal Revenue Service as a business deduction, and that when duties require school board members to be absent from regular employment, they may be reimbursed for actual loss of earnings in an amount per day as established from time to time by board policy. I'll pause and ask if there is a motion from the floor in support of adopting this resolution. If you could state your name, please. Jenny Orr. Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? Ma'am? I'm sorry? Amanda Daly. Thank you for the second. We have a motion and second in support of adopting this resolution, so we will open this up for comment at this time. Does anyone wish to come forward to the podium to comment on this particular resolution? Oh, we have one. I believe it's Mr. Williams. All right, thank you. Mr. Williams, please come forward. Sure. All right, we'll get the timer set. And Mr. Williams had already confirmed that you are an eligible voter in the district, so we'll waive that. And we have the 3-minute timer, correct? Ready to go? All right, the next 3 minutes are yours.
Thank you. Good evening again. I'm going to vote against this just because a little history here in 2014, and it wouldn't necessarily have applied to me. I had to decide whether I was going to run again or not. There was a balking by 2 votes of people moving school board salaries from $2,000 to $3,000, and that was benchmarked with area school districts, and it was still low at the time, and so it was put down to $2,500, and officers were $2,600, and we barely got that by. So I don't really and further background, that number had not changed since 1998. So 16 years went by just to get $500 more. Now, all of a sudden, last year, only 8 years later, it doubles. I think that's unjustified, given that board member salaries were frozen for 16 years, and we lost out on some otherwise good people to serve on the board. You got the same people, people that don't care about the money, people that won't run because it costs them too much money. So for all those reasons, I'm against this. I just think it was too much, too fast last year, just given the history of this issue. Also, really, I think the school board salaries should be reduced, and I'll explain why quickly. For the 5 school board members who are not doing an acceptable job, I guess that would mean everybody, but because of those 5. Student academic performance is worsening. Our students are not as safe as they should be, and we just voted down increase in safety measures, which I think is shameful, because if I'm a parent still and I can't send my kids to the schools and feel like they're about as safe as they'd be at home, I'm not sending my students to the West Bend schools. Highly objectionable topics and materials such as CRI and SEL keep being forced into the curriculum, and we didn't eliminate them, even though we had the chance to. And our community's trust in its public schools is seriously and rightfully eroding. Due to all of this and many more problems, enrollment may still be declining. I don't know. As mentioned earlier, I got 2 very different opposite sets of numbers, so I don't even know, but it may still be declining. The board majority has not earned a salary increase or even its current salary, and in truth, they should really take a pay cut, considering that the district has gotten worse under their stewardship. So I'm going to vote against this resolution, and I would ask all of you to please join me in that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments regarding this particular resolution? Yes, Mr. Schultz. Please come forward, and again, as we had heard from you before, you certified that you are an eligible voter in the district. We have your 3-minute timer, and the next 3 minutes are yours.
Thanks, Chris. Going a little off the cuff here, don't really have a whole lot prepared for this, but I think Bart made a great point. And I'd also like to bring up another good point. I don't plan on making an amendment to this. I just would like to give a little background. Let's talk about attendance at school board meetings. You know, there are school board members that, you know, show up, and some of them, you know, for the most part are there, and some people they're not there. I've been getting involved in going to my local school board meetings since middle of October last year. And since then, I've missed 2 meetings. One, because I'm a truck driver providing this community with goods and services, and I didn't get done with work until 8:30 at night. The other one was because I was sick, and maybe it was COVID. I don't know. I didn't test for it, but God forbid I get anybody sick. So, maybe, I guess maybe I should, I don't know. I'm not gonna make an amendment, but I would like attendance to be considered. I understand that typically when people are not at school board meetings, it is excused. I guess maybe the school board could and should look into an attendance policy. If there's 26 meetings in a year, they're typically every other week. However many meetings, you can only miss X amount of them. I don't really know what that number should be, but I think that there should be an attendance portion because the taxpayers are paying the school board members, so they should be there, plain and simple. And if they're not, then they shouldn't get paid. If I don't show up to my job and I don't have an excused vacation day, I don't get paid for it. So I would like that just to be known for public record. Thank you for the time.
Just as a point of confirmation, you declined to make a amended motion, but you did seek that the school board bring that up as a matter of policy in the future. Correct. Thank you.
All right, any other individuals which, Mr. Rebholz, if you could please state your name and please verify that you are an eligible voter in this district.
Yeah, Kurt Rebholz. I live on 202 Aaron Court. I'm on the school board. I had 2 kids go through the school system.
All right, great. The next 3 minutes are yours.
So regarding the resolution for keeping the salaries the same, I'm actually against it. I was against it last year. But for the latest comments from the last speaker about school board members not putting in time and effort and caring about this district is absolutely false. Everyone prepares, and I'll comment, all 7 members prepare for the meetings, and I've appreciated all the comments and sometimes difference of opinion of not only just a couple members, all the members. So we work hard, we love our schools, we love our teachers, we love the staff, we love the community and kids. So I just had to say that on behalf. I am voting against the pay just because I do this because I volunteer, like many of our school board members. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rebholz. Anyone else wish to make a comment? I'm sorry, you had your 3 minutes, sir.
I yielded maybe 20 or 30 seconds. May I get that time back, or is that not allowed? I just asked.
I'm sorry, you yielded it to others. So, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else, though, care to comment? Yes, please. If you could please state your name and your relationship, your name, please, and then also if you could just certify if you are an eligible voter in this district.
Sure. My name is Kate McCall. I'm a taxpayer and voter in this district.
All right. Thanks, McCall. The next 3 minutes are yours.
Sure. I can't imagine standing up here and saying that the school board doesn't do enough. I can't even imagine how hard your job is to be on the school board. How many hours you spend thinking about our students and our teachers and our staff and caring about our policies, and I can't imagine standing up here and saying it's not good enough. I can't imagine how much we don't see. We go to the meetings, they go to more meetings. They talk about this in their spare time, I am sure, because they always know what's going on. So I just wanted to come up here and say how disrespectful I think it is to disparage our school board, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. That's all right. No applause, please. Appreciate that, but no applause out of respect for all sides in this. And anyone else? I think, yes, sir, please. If you could please state your name and verify that you are an eligible voter in this district, please.
Raymond Sanders. Yeah, I already talked before.
All right, very good.
I just want to say, not to this one that you want to vote on now, but I got here today at 5:30, and I talked to a police officer out here. I came in through the entrance down on that end of the school, and I
Sir.
walked this hall and
Sir-
everything. I just walked right through the door.
Sir, you need to reserve your comments for this third resolution.
You
Sir-
got no security in this school. I couldn't did anything. There were
Sir, you are out of
kids
order
playing
at a public meeting. Sir, please, you're out of order at a public meeting. This is comment on the third resolution. The third resolution was related to school board salaries and school board work. Sir. Sir, we need you to conclude your comments, please. Sir, please have a seat. Thank you. Any other comments regarding this particular resolution? All right. We have a motion and second in support of the resolution. Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. We put the text of the resolution back on the screen. We have a motion and support and second. We've heard public comment. So I'd ask at this time, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of adopting this resolution as it reads, please rise. Right, thank you. You may have a seat. We'll do this visually. I'd ask now that those individuals who are not in favor of adopting this resolution, please rise. All right, thank you. Based on a visual count, this resolution passes. Thank you for your votes and for your comments. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. And so it's time to consider adjournment. All right. For the good of the order, Ms. Callum?
In the back, yeah.
All right.
She had that, Jenny Orth, I think, got the
And
second.
Jenny Orth had a second. You're good with that? All right. We have a motion and second in support of adjournment. Any objections? Otherwise, I'll call for the vote. If you're in favor of adjourning, please rise. Based on a visual count, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for dedicating your time and for coming here tonight. We appreciate it very much. Have a good evening.